The smoke still rose from the burning buildings when Admiral Jake Morrison arrived at New Austin Colony. His boots crunched on broken glass as he walked through what used to be the main street. Yesterday, this place had been home to 12,000 humans. Today, it was a graveyard. Captain Roy Bennett met him at the landing pad. Roy's uniform was torn and dirty. Blood stained his left sleeve. "They hit us at dawn," Roy said. His voice was flat and tired. No warning. Just like all the others. Jake looked around at the destruction. The Zephyrian raiders had been thorough. Every building showed damage. Some were completely destroyed. Others had their walls blown open like broken eggs. The smell of smoke mixed with something worse that Jake tried not to think about. "How many?" Jake asked. "We lost about 300 in the fighting," Roy said. "But that's not the worst part." Jake waited for Roy to continue. He had commanded human colonies for 15 years. He had seen the aliens attack before. Each time was worse than the last. Each time, Earth told them to hold their ground and wait for help that never came. "They took the children," Roy said. "All of them. Anyone under 16 years old." Jake felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How many children?" 843. The number hit Jake like a physical blow. He had children of his own back on Earth. Twin boys who were only 12 years old. The thought of alien hands on them made his vision go red for a moment. Dr. Lisa Harper walked toward them from the medical center. She had been the colony's chief scientist for 10 years. Jake had known her since she was a young researcher. Now her face looked older than her 40 years. Her eyes were red from crying. "I tried to hide them," Lisa said. Her voice shook. "We had bunkers. We had plans. But they knew exactly where to look. They had maps of our entire colony." Jake realized what that meant. Someone gave them information. Lisa nodded. "The Galactic Council. They planned this. All of it." She handed Jake a data pad. The screen showed an official message from the Galactic Council. Jake read it slowly. Each word made him angrier. "Humanity's continued expansion threatens galactic stability. Your species has ignored multiple warnings to cease colonization activities. The Council has voted to implement containment measures. All human settlements beyond the Sol system will be absorbed into Council territory. Human populations will be relocated to serve galactic needs. Resistance will be met with complete elimination." Jake read the message twice. Then he read it again. 28 human colonies had been attacked in the past year. Each time, Earth Command had called it random piracy. Each time they had been told to defend themselves and wait for support. Now Jake understood the truth. This was not random. This was planned genocide. "There's more," Lisa said. She touched the screen and showed him another document. "They're not just taking our colonies. They're taking our people to sell as slaves." The document was a price list. Human children were worth more than adults. Smart humans were worth more than strong ones. The younger the child, the higher the price. Jake stared at the numbers. His hands began to shake. 843 children from New Austin would be sold to the highest bidder. They would spend their lives as property of alien masters. Lieutenant Susan Wells jogged up to them. She had been leading search and rescue teams through the ruins. "Admiral, you need to see this." Susan led them to what used to be the school. The building was mostly intact, but all the windows were broken. Inside, the walls were covered with messages. The children had written them before the aliens took them away. "Tell my mom I love her. Don't forget us. Come find us. We tried to be brave." Jake read message after message. Some were written in crayon. Others were scratched into the wall with broken pieces of metal. All of them were from children who knew they were about to disappear forever. One message was different from the others. It was written in neat handwriting on a piece of paper and taped to the wall. "My name is Katie Johnson. I am 8 years old. The aliens say humans are weak. They say we don't fight back. They are wrong. My dad is in the Earth Navy. He will come for us, all of us. And when he does, the aliens will be sorry they ever heard of humans." Jake stared at the message for a long time. He thought about his own children. He thought about every human colony that had been attacked. He thought about 30 years of alien aggression and Earth's weak responses. "Admiral," Roy said quietly, "what are your orders?" Jake looked around the ruined school one more time. Then he walked outside. The afternoon sun was setting behind the smoke clouds. In a few hours it would be dark. The aliens would be long gone with their human cargo. But Jake was done being reactive. He was done following orders to wait and defend. He was done watching humans die while Earth did nothing. Get me a direct communication link to Earth Command, Jake said. Priority Alpha. I need to speak to General Carter immediately. Sir, that will take at least 6 hours to establish, Susan said. Then start now, Jake ordered. And send a message to every human ship in this sector. Tell them to converge on Earth. Tell them Admiral Morrison is coming home with news that will change everything. Roy looked confused. What news, sir? Jake looked at the ruins around them. He thought about Katie Johnson and her message. He thought about 843 children being sold like animals. He thought about 30 years of being told that humans were weak. The news that the galaxy just made the biggest mistake in its history. Jake said, They think they know what humans are capable of. They think we're soft because we try to be peaceful. They're about to learn the difference between being peaceful and being weak. Lisa was still holding the data pad with the council's message. What do we do about the children? Jake's expression hardened. We get them back. All of them. And then we make sure this never happens again. How? Roy asked. Jake started walking toward his ship. By showing the galaxy what happens when you push humans too far. They want to see what we're really capable of? Fine. It's time for them to meet the species that conquered its own planet before it could even leave it. Behind him, the ruins of New Austin Colony smoldered in the fading light. But Jake was no longer thinking about what had been destroyed. He was thinking about what was going to be built from the ashes. The aliens had finally crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. Now they would learn why human history was written in blood, and why the most dangerous animal was always the one with nothing left to lose. The elevator descended for what felt like forever. Admiral Jake Morrison watched the numbers on the display climb higher as they went deeper underground. Level 50. Level 70. Level 100. He had been to Earth Command many times, but never this deep. General Nick Carter stood beside him in silence. Carter was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from the border wars 20 years ago. He had been fighting aliens longer than anyone Jake knew. But today, Carter looked different. Today he looked like a man with a dangerous secret. How deep does this go? Jake asked. Deep enough, Carter said. We've been digging for 30 years. The elevator finally stopped at level 120. The doors opened to reveal a corridor that stretched beyond what Jake could see. The walls were metal and the lights were bright white. It looked like the inside of a spaceship, but Jake knew they were still underground. Carter led him down the corridor. They passed dozens of doors marked with numbers and letters that meant nothing to Jake. Through some of the open doors, Jake could see laboratories filled with equipment he didn't recognize. General, what is this place? This is what we've been building while the aliens thought we were weak, Carter said. Welcome to Project Lazarus. They entered a large room filled with screens and control panels. Dozens of people in military uniforms worked at computers. The screens showed star maps, ship designs, and data that moved too fast for Jake to read. A woman with short brown hair walked toward them. She was wearing the uniform of a commander, but Jake didn't recognize her rank insignia. Admiral Morrison, this is Commander Helen Brooks, Carter said. She runs our Special Operations Division. Helen shook Jake's hand. Her grip was firm and her eyes were cold. I'm sorry about New Austin Colony. I knew some of the families there. How did you know about the attack so quickly? Jake asked. Helen and Carter exchanged looks. Because we've been watching every alien movement in this sector for 15 years, Helen said. We knew they were coming. We just couldn't stop them without revealing ourselves. Jake felt anger rise in his chest. You knew and you let it happen? We let it happen because stopping one attack wouldn't save humanity, Carter said. But what happened at New Austin was the last piece we needed. Now we can save everyone. Carter led them to a massive screen that showed a map of the galaxy. Red dots marked alien territories. Blue dots marked human colonies. There were far more red dots than blue ones. For 30 years we've let the aliens think they were winning, Carter said. We've let them believe humans are weak and primitive. While they were celebrating their superiority, we were learning everything about them. The screen changed to show detailed information about different alien species. The Zephyrians with their fast ships and energy weapons. The Corvan Empire with their powerful shields and large fleets. The High Collective with their advanced computers and robot armies. We know their technology, their tactics, their weaknesses, Helen said. We know where they live, how they think, what they fear. Most importantly, we know they've never fought an enemy like us. What makes us different? Jake asked. Dr. Alan Foster stepped out from behind a computer station. He was a thin man with thick glasses and nervous hands. The aliens follow rules, Admiral. They have codes of honor and traditional ways of fighting. They avoid attacking civilians. They try to minimize casualties. They negotiate before they fight. Alan gestured to another screen that showed human history, pictures of ancient battles, modern wars, and conflicts that had shaped Earth for thousands of years. Humans don't follow rules when we're threatened, Alan continued. We fight with everything we have. We target anything that helps our enemy. We don't stop until our enemy can never threaten us again. Carter pressed a button and the screen changed again. Now it showed something that made Jake's breath catch in his throat. Ships. Hundreds of them. They were sleek and dark with designs unlike anything Jake had ever seen. We've been building a fleet, Carter said. Not just any fleet. Ships designed specifically to fight aliens. Every weapon system is built to counter their defenses. Every shield is designed to stop their attacks. Helen walked to a control panel and brought up technical specifications. The aliens think their plasma shields make them invincible. Our quantum disruptors phase right through them. They think their energy weapons are unstoppable. Our armor absorbs the energy and feeds it back to our own weapons. Jake stared at the data scrolling across the screens. How long have you been planning this? Since the first alien attack 30 years ago, Carter said. Every time they hit a human colony, we learned something new. Every time they killed our people, we got stronger. They taught us how to fight them by fighting us. The room fell silent except for the humming of computers. Jake thought about New Austin Colony, about Katie Johnson and her message on the school wall, about 843 children being sold as slaves. What do you need from me? Jake asked. We need you to command the fleet, Carter said. You fought the aliens more than anyone. You know their tactics. Most importantly, you understand what they took from us. Helen handed Jake a datapad. These are the locations of every alien military base, every slave market, every government facility in a 100-light-year radius. We're not going to fight a defensive war anymore, Admiral. We're going to end this. Jake looked at the list of targets. There were thousands of them. This isn't a military operation. This is total war. Yes, Carter said simply. The aliens wanted to wipe out humanity. Now we're going to show them what that actually looks like. Dr. Foster brought up another screen showing communication intercepts. The alien governments are planning to attack Earth directly. They think our homeworld is defenseless. They're planning to end the human problem once and for all. When? Jake asked. 6 months, Helen said. They're gathering the largest fleet in galactic history. Every major alien power is contributing ships. Carter smiled for the first time since Jake had arrived. They're expecting to find a weak planet with primitive defenses. Instead, they're going to find the most dangerous military force this galaxy has ever seen. Jake looked around the room at all the people working at their stations. Engineers, scientists, soldiers, and strategists. All of them had been preparing for this moment for years. How many ships do we have? Jake asked. Enough, Carter said. The real question is whether you're ready to use them. Because once we start this war, we don't stop until every alien government surrenders or ceases to exist. Jake thought about the children's messages on the school wall. He thought about Katie Johnson's faith that humans would come for them. He thought about 30 years of attacks and losses and being told to wait for help that never came. I'm ready, Jake said. When do we start? Helen pressed a button on her control panel. Throughout the underground facility, alarms began to sound. Not emergency alarms, but alert signals. The signals that meant it was time to begin. We already have, Helen said. Admiral, welcome to humanity's real military. It's time to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten the wrong species. On the screens around them, the hidden fleet began to move. Ships that had been waiting in secret bases throughout the solar system started their engines. Weapons that had been tested in hidden laboratories were loaded onto fighters and cruisers. For 30 years, the aliens had thought they were hunting humans. Now they were about to learn they had been training them instead. The hunt was over. The war was about to begin. The Corvin military station at Proxima Centauri had stood for 200 years. It was a massive structure built into an asteroid, armed with enough weapons to destroy a small fleet. 10,000 Corvin soldiers lived and worked there, protecting one of the most important trade routes in alien space. At exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time, the station simply stopped existing. Admiral Kate Phillips watched from the bridge of the TES Retribution as her new quantum torpedoes tore through space and time itself. The weapons didn't just destroy the station. They erased it from reality, leaving nothing but empty space where the fortress had been moments before. "Target eliminated," reported Lieutenant Commander Pete Walsh from the weapons station. "No debris detected. No survivors," Kate nodded. It was exactly what they had expected. The quantum torpedoes didn't just blow things up. They unmade them at the atomic level. Anyone watching would think the station had simply vanished. "Communication, send the message," Kate ordered. Across the galaxy, alien communication networks received the same transmission simultaneously. It was short and simple, broadcast in every known alien language. "This is Admiral Kate Phillips of the Terran Empire. The Corvin station at Proxima Centauri has been destroyed as payment for attacks on human colonies. This is your only warning. Return all human prisoners immediately and cease all hostile actions against Earth territories, or face complete annihilation." On the planet Zephyr Prime, High Commander Vextar stared at the message with confusion and disbelief. The Zephyrians were the fastest species in the galaxy. Their ships could travel between star systems in days instead of weeks. They had been raiding human colonies for years without any real resistance. Impossible. Vextar clicked in his native language. "Humans don't have ships that can reach Proxima Centauri." His aide, a younger Zephyrian named Kilnos, pulled up sensor data from their border stations. "Sir, we're detecting energy signatures near our outer colonies." Unknown ship types. They appeared without warning. Vextar examined the data. The energy readings were unlike anything in their databases. "Send 3 squadrons to investigate. If these are human ships, destroy them immediately." The Zephyrian interceptors were the pride of their military. Each ship could travel at nearly light speed and carried enough firepower to level a city. They had never lost a battle against any enemy. 18 Zephyrian fighters dropped out of hyperspace near the human colony on Kepler 442b, expecting to find primitive human defenders. Instead, they found Captain Steve Johnson and the 3rd Assault Fleet. Waiting for them, the battle lasted exactly 47 seconds. Steve watched from his command ship as the Zephyrian fighters tried to use their speed advantage. The aliens moved fast, but the human ships moved faster. More importantly, the human weapons didn't need to aim. They fired in all directions at once, creating energy fields that trapped anything that moved through them. 18 confirmed kills, reported his weapons officer. No human casualties. Steve opened a communication channel to the planet below. Kepler 442b had been a human mining colony until the Zephyrians conquered it 6 months ago. 3,000 human miners had been forced to work in alien mines, digging rare metals to fund more attacks on Earth colonies. "This is Captain Johnson of the Terran Empire. All Zephyrian forces on Kepler 442b have 5 minutes to surrender. Any alien found harming human prisoners will be executed immediately." On the planet's surface, the Zephyrian overseers looked at each other in confusion. They had advanced weapons and defensive positions. How could primitive humans threaten them? The answer came in the form of drop pods that fell from the sky like metal rain. Each pod contained 10 human soldiers wearing armor that made them look like mechanical demons. The armor was black and silver, with red lights where the eyes should be. Lieutenant Maria Lopez led the first squad into the main mining facility. The Zephyrian guards tried to stop them with energy weapons that should have cut through any known armor. Instead, the weapons had no effect at all. "Impossible," one of the guards chittered before Maria's rifle turned him into vapor. The human assault teams moved through the alien facilities with perfect coordination. They had studied Zephyrian tactics for years. They knew exactly where the guards would be, how they would react, and what weapons they would use. More importantly, they had equipment designed specifically to counter every Zephyrian advantage. The aliens were fast, but human sensors could track them perfectly. The aliens had energy shields, but human weapons passed right through them. The aliens had superior numbers, but humans had superior everything else. Within 2 hours, every Zephyrian on Kepler 442b was either dead or locked in the same cells where they had kept human prisoners. Back on Earth, Dr. Rachel Ward monitored communications networks across the galaxy. Her job was to track alien responses to human attacks and measure their growing panic. "General Carter, you need to hear this," Rachel said over the communication system. Carter's voice came through the speakers in the monitoring station. "What have you got, Doctor?" "The Galactic Council is calling an emergency session. They're sending warnings to every member species about what they're calling the Terran menace. Listen to this." Rachel played a recording of an alien news broadcast. The translator converted the alien language into English, but the fear in the speaker's voice needed no translation. Reports continue to arrive of devastating attacks by unknown human forces. The Corvan military confirms that their Proxima Centauri station has been completely destroyed by weapons that defy all known physics. Zephyrian High Command reports the loss of an entire fighter squadron and the capture of one of their colony worlds. The broadcast continued with more reports. Human forces had struck 12 different targets simultaneously across a 50-light-year radius. Every attack had been perfectly planned and executed. No human losses had been reported. "They're calling us a menace," Rachel said. "After 30 years of attacking our colonies and enslaving our people, they're surprised that we finally fought back." Carter's voice was grim. "Good, let them be afraid. Fear will make them make mistakes." On Zephyr Prime, High Commander Vextar was learning exactly what those mistakes looked like. His communication officers were reporting impossible information from across Zephyrian space. "Sir, we've lost contact with 17 outposts in the last 4 hours, Kilnos reported. Each one went silent at exactly the same time their patrol ships disappeared. Vextar studied the tactical display. Red marks showed where Zephyrian forces had vanished. The pattern was too organized to be random attacks. Someone was systematically destroying their military infrastructure. "How many ships have we lost?" Vextar asked. 137 confirmed destroyed, 42 missing and presumed destroyed. 0 human ships confirmed killed. The numbers were impossible. Zephyrians had been fighting wars for thousands of years. They had never faced an enemy that could destroy their forces without taking any losses. "Sir," another officer called out, "we're receiving a direct transmission from the human fleet." Admiral Kate Phillips appeared on the main screen. She was sitting in what looked like the bridge of a warship, but the technology visible behind her was beyond anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. "High Commander Vextar," Kate said calmly. "My name is Admiral Phillips. I believe you have something that belongs to us." Vextar found his voice. "You have violated galactic law by attacking Zephyrian territory." Kate smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Galactic law died when you started enslaving human children. You have 24 hours to return every human prisoner in Zephyrian space and pay reparations for 30 years of unprovoked attacks." "And if we refuse?" Kate's expression didn't change. "Then in 25 hours there will be no more Zephyrian space. No more Zephyrian colonies. No more Zephyr Prime. Your entire species will become a historical footnote about what happens when you underestimate humans." The transmission ended, leaving Vextar staring at a blank screen. Around the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place as human forces delivered the same message to every alien government. The time for defensive actions was over. The time for mercy had ended. Humanity had finally decided to show the galaxy what they were really capable of. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. Ambassador Trondar of the High Collective had never been afraid before. As a member of one of the galaxy's most advanced species, fear was not something his people experienced often. But as his diplomatic shuttle approached Earth's moon base, Trondar felt something very close to terror. The moon base itself was a shock. The last collective intelligence reports had described Earth's moon as barely inhabited, with only a few small research stations. Instead, Trondar saw a massive military complex that stretched across the lunar surface. Ships moved in and out of hidden bays. Weapon platforms tracked his shuttle's approach. The entire moon had been turned into a fortress. Colonel Dan Miller met Trondar at the airlock. Miller was a tall human with gray eyes and scars on his face. He wore a simple military uniform, but something about his expression made Trondar's skin crawl. "Ambassador," Miller said politely. "Welcome to Luna Base. I'm Colonel Miller. I'll be handling your negotiations." Trondar had brought a full diplomatic team with him, but the humans had only sent one man. It was either an insult or a sign that they didn't take the collective seriously. Given what had happened to the Corvan Empire and the Zephyrian Confederation in the past week, Trondar suspected it was the latter. Miller led them through corridors lined with human soldiers. Each soldier carried weapons that Trondar's experts couldn't identify. The technology looked advanced beyond anything in collective databases. "Your moon base is impressive," Trondar said, trying to start a conversation. "Thank you," Miller replied. "We've had 30 years to build it. Plenty of time to prepare for visitors." They entered a conference room with a long table. Miller sat on one side while Trondar and his team took seats on the other. Through the windows, Trondar could see Earth floating in space. It looked peaceful and blue, nothing like the war machine that was currently tearing apart galactic civilization. "I bring greetings from the High Collective," Trondar began formally. "We come seeking an end to hostilities and a return to peaceful relations." Miller's expression didn't change. Peaceful relations. Interesting choice of words. Trondar pulled out a data pad and placed it on the table. "The Collective is prepared to offer substantial reparations for any damages caused by our previous actions. We propose a full trade agreement, territorial concessions, and technology sharing." Miller picked up the data pad and read through the offer. His face showed no emotion as he scrolled through pages of proposals that would make humanity one of the richest species in the galaxy. "Tell me about your previous actions," Miller said quietly. "I'm sorry? You mentioned damages caused by your previous actions. I want to hear you describe what those actions were." Trondar felt uncomfortable. There were some unfortunate incidents involving human colonies. The Collective regrets any harm that may have been caused. Miller set down the data pad. "Unfortunate incidents. Is that what you call the attack on New Austin Colony? Colonel, I'm sure we can discuss specific events later. For now, perhaps we should focus on moving forward. My wife and daughter lived on New Austin Colony," Miller said. His voice was still quiet, but something had changed in his eyes. "They were visiting friends when your ships attacked." Trondar began to understand why the humans had sent this particular officer to negotiate. "I'm sorry for your loss," Trondar said carefully. "War brings tragedy to all sides." "War?" Miller repeated. "We weren't at war. Your people attacked a farming colony with no military defenses. You killed 300 civilians and took 800 children to sell as slaves. The Collective was acting under Galactic Council authorization to contain human expansion." Miller stood up slowly. "My daughter was 8 years old. Her name was Emma. She liked to draw pictures of flowers and wanted to be a teacher when she grew up." Trondar shifted in his seat. The other human guards in the room hadn't moved, but something in the atmosphere had changed. "According to our records, Emma was sold to a mining operation on Vega Prime," Miller continued. "She spent 6 months working 16-hour days in underground tunnels before the stress killed her. She was still 8 years old when she died." The conference room fell silent. Trondar realized that his diplomatic mission had just become much more complicated. "Colonel Miller, the Collective deeply regrets the loss of your daughter. We are prepared to offer personal compensation in addition to our other proposals." Miller sat back down. "You want to pay me for my dead daughter?" "We want to acknowledge the harm caused and provide appropriate restitution." Miller laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "You know what I think about your restitution? I think you're only here because you're losing." Trondar tried to regain control of the conversation. "The Collective believes that negotiation is always preferable to continued conflict. Where was that belief when you were attacking human colonies?" Miller asked. "Where were your peace negotiations when you were selling human children?" "The situation has evolved. The Collective recognizes that humans are more capable than we initially believed." "More capable." Miller repeated the words slowly. "Let me tell you about capability, Ambassador. In the past week, human forces have destroyed 47 Collective military installations. We've liberated 32 slave labor camps. We've captured or killed over 50,000 Collective soldiers." Trondar had seen the reports, but hearing the numbers from a human officer made them more real and more terrifying. "Our casualties in those operations?" Miller continued. 12 wounded, 0 killed, 0 ships lost, 0 missions failed." "Impossible," one of Trondar's aides whispered. Miller turned his attention to the aide. "You think it's impossible because you don't understand what you're fighting. You think this is a war between military forces using similar technology and tactics." Miller activated a wall screen that showed tactical displays from recent battles. Trondar watched in horror as Collective fleets were systematically destroyed by human forces that seemed to appear from nowhere. "This isn't a war," Miller said. "This is an extermination. You taught us for 30 years that the only law in this galaxy is strength. You taught us that mercy is weakness. You taught us that the strong have the right to take whatever they want from the weak." The screen showed images of destroyed Collective colonies, cities reduced to rubble, military bases turned into crater-filled wastelands. "We were excellent students," Miller said. Trondar tried one more time to salvage the negotiation. "Colonel, surely we can find a peaceful solution." The collective is willing to make substantial concessions. You're willing to make concessions because you're afraid, Miller said. For the first time in your species' history, you've encountered something stronger than you are. Miller stood up again and walked to the window overlooking Earth. Do you know what human children learn in school about negotiations? Trondar shook his head. They learn that you only negotiate from a position of strength. They learn that if someone hurts you and gets away with it, they'll hurt you again. They learn that some actions have consequences that can't be undone. Miller turned back to face the collective delegation. Your people took my daughter and sold her to die in a mine. You did it because you thought humans were too weak to stop you. You were wrong. What do you want? Trondar asked desperately. I want my daughter back, Miller said. I want 843 children from New Austin Colony back. I want 3,000 miners from Kepler 442b back. I want 30 years of human suffering undone. Some of those people are dead. We can't bring back the dead. No, you can't, Miller agreed. That's why there won't be any negotiations. That's why your people's fate was decided the moment you attacked your first human colony. Miller walked to the door. Guards will escort you back to your ship. You have 6 hours to leave the Sol system before we consider your presence an act of war. But the peace negotiations, Trondar protested. Miller paused at the door. Ambassador, there is no peace. There is only what comes after you taught humanity what the galaxy is really like. As the collective delegation was escorted from the room, Miller looked out at Earth one more time. Somewhere down there, other parents were reading reports about the liberation of human prisoners. Some would be reunited with their children. Others would only receive bodies to bury. But Emma Miller would never come home. And for that crime, the High Collective would pay a price that would echo across the galaxy for generations. The age of alien dominance was ending. The age of human justice was just beginning. The Great Assembly Hall on Kythera Prime had once been the throne room of the High Collective. Alien emperors had ruled the galaxy from this chamber for over 1,000 years. Today, it belonged to humanity. President Sam Douglas stood at the podium where collective leaders had once proclaimed their superiority over lesser species. Behind him hung the flag of the Terran Empire, a blue field with Earth at the center, surrounded by stars representing every human colony that had been attacked and reclaimed. In the seats below, representatives from 47 alien species waited in silence. The Zephyrian delegates sat with bandaged wounds from the fall of their homeworld. The Corvan ambassador wore the simple clothes of a refugee, his empire reduced to a handful of mining stations. The High Collective's representative was a junior. Clerk, everyone else in their government, was either dead or in prison. Douglas looked out at the assembled aliens and remembered the first time he had seen this chamber. It had been during a peace conference 12 years ago, when humanity was still begging for the right to exist. He had stood in the back with the other minor species while the collective emperor had dismissed human concerns with a wave of his hand. That emperor was now buried in the ruins of his palace, along with every other alien leader who had thought humans were beneath their notice. For 30 years, Douglas began, his voice carrying clearly through the hall, you taught us that power is the only truth in this galaxy. You taught us that the strong rule and the weak serve. You taught us that mercy is foolishness and compassion is weakness. In the front row, Admiral Kate Phillips sat in her dress uniform. The medals on her chest represented battles that had rewritten galactic history. Next to her, General Nick Carter wore the simple field uniform he had worn throughout the war. He had refused all decorations, saying that victory was reward enough. You were excellent teachers, Douglas continued. We learned every lesson perfectly. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. Some looked angry. Others looked defeated. All of them looked afraid. The old galactic order is dead, Douglas said. You killed it when you decided that humanity was expendable, when you chose to enslave our children rather than treat us as equals, when you convinced yourselves that being civilized meant you could do whatever you wanted to those you considered uncivilized. Dr. Lisa Harper sat in the second row, reviewing the documents that would reshape galactic civilization. As Director of Galactic Affairs, her job was to make sure the new order would last. Every page represented years of planning, based on hard-earned knowledge of alien psychology and politics. The new order will be simple, Douglas said. Earth rules. Earth decides. Earth judges. He gestured to Captain Roy Bennett, who stood near a control panel. The screens around the chamber lit up with images from across the galaxy. Human ships in orbit around alien homeworlds, human soldiers guarding alien government buildings, human administrators taking control of alien trade networks. Every world in this galaxy will host Terran monitoring stations, Douglas continued. Every military will be disbanded except for local police forces armed with approved weapons. Every government will report to Earth Command before making any decision that affects other species. The Zephyrian delegate stood up. This is slavery. You cannot rule the entire galaxy. Douglas looked at the alien calmly. Can't we? Your fleets are destroyed. Your colonies are occupied. Your leaders are dead or imprisoned. What exactly is going to stop us? The delegate sat down without answering. Every species will provide tribute to Earth, Douglas continued. Technology, resources, and labor to rebuild what you destroyed during 30 years of attacks on human colonies. This is not negotiable. Commander Helen Brooks entered the chamber and whispered something to Admiral Phillips. Phillips nodded and stood up. Mr. President, I have a report from Admiral Morrison's task force. The last Corvin resistance cell has surrendered. All human prisoners have been recovered and are being transported home. Applause broke out among the human delegation. Douglas waited for it to die down before continuing. The total cost of your attacks on humanity has been calculated, Douglas said. 347,000 humans killed. 800,000 enslaved. 43 colonies destroyed. Infrastructure loss is valued at 12 trillion credits. The numbers appeared on the screens around the chamber. The alien delegate stared at the figures in shock. Payment will be made over the next 50 years, Douglas said. Any species that fails to meet its obligations will be removed from existence. The collective representative raised a shaky hand. Removed from existence? Douglas nodded to Dr. Harper, who stood up and activated another display. The screen showed before and after images of the Corvin homeworld. Before, a thriving planet with billions of inhabitants and massive cities. After, an empty world covered in glass, still glowing from the weapons that had sterilized it. The Corvin Empire chose to fight rather than surrender, Harper said. They believed their planetary shields would protect them. They were wrong. The chamber fell silent. Every alien in the room stared at the images of the dead world. That is what removal from existence looks like, Douglas said. Complete elimination of your species, your culture, your history. Nothing left but empty planets and scattered atoms. Colonel Dan Miller stood up in the back of the chamber. He had been quiet throughout the ceremony, but now he had something to say. Some of you are wondering if humans are monsters, Miller said. If we've become the very thing we fought against. He walked down the aisle toward the podium. Let me answer that question. Yes, we are monsters. We are the monsters you created when you decided to prey on our children. Miller reached the front of the chamber and turned to face the alien delegates. The difference is that we are honest about what we are. We don't pretend to be civilized while we commit genocide. We don't call slavery relocation or murder containment. We are what you made us, Miller continued, and we will be what this galaxy needs us to be to make sure that what happened to humanity never happens to anyone else. Douglas resumed his speech. The new galactic order will be enforced by the Terran Navy. Human fleets will patrol every system. Human administrators will oversee every government. Human judges will decide the fate of anyone who threatens peace. The screens showed the size of humanity's new fleet. Thousands of ships built with the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Many of the alien delegates recognized components from their own empires. Technology that had been captured, improved, and turned against its creators. This is not temporary, Douglas said. This is not a punishment that will end when we feel you have learned your lesson. This is permanent. Your species had thousands of years to learn how to coexist peacefully. You chose war instead. He paused and looked around the chamber. We chose to win. The formal ceremony continued for another hour as each alien representative signed documents of surrender. They agreed to tribute payments, territorial concessions, and technology transfers. They accepted human oversight of their governments and human control of their militaries. Most importantly, they acknowledged that the age of alien dominance was over. As the delegates filed out, Douglas remained at the podium with his senior staff. Admiral Phillips joined him at the window overlooking the former collective capital. Any regrets? Phillips asked. Douglas thought about the question as he watched human ships landing at what used to be alien military bases. About ending the war? Know about how we had to end it? He paused. Ask me in 100 years. Dr. Harper approached with the final tallies from the liberation operations. All human prisoners have been recovered or accounted for, she said. Final numbers. 230,000 survivors returned home. 68,000 confirmed dead. Douglas felt the weight of those numbers. 68,000 humans who would never see Earth again because alien governments had decided their species was expendable. What about the children from New Austin Colony? Douglas asked. Harper consulted her datapad. 412 recovered alive. 431 confirmed dead. Douglas closed his eyes for a moment. He thought about 8-year-old Katie Johnson and her message about humans coming to save them. Katie had been among the survivors, but she would never see many of her friends again. Was it worth it? Harper asked quietly. Douglas opened his eyes and looked out at the alien city below. Human soldiers patrolled streets where no human had been allowed to walk just a year ago. Human flags flew from buildings where alien governors had once planned the extinction of humanity. Ask the children who came home, Douglas said. Ask the parents who thought they would never see their families again. Ask the colonists who won't have to watch alien ships appear in their skies. He turned away from the window. The galaxy taught us that strength is the only law that matters. We learned that lesson well. Now the galaxy is going to live under that law for a very long time. As they left the chamber, the humans could hear alien news broadcasts beginning to spread word of the new order. Terms like Terran occupation and human supremacy filled the airwaves. Fear and anger mixed with resignation and despair. But from Earth came different broadcasts, messages of hope from families reunited with loved ones they thought were lost forever. Reports.